Thank you all. Thank you all. We're sorry about being a few minutes late starting the program, but thank you again for joining the Gwinnett NAACP for our general meeting, which we will have a motion shortly to suspend tonight's meeting. But we do have some great guests for our Meet the Candidate Forum. This will be a 2-hour event in which we will have both candidates in each race come on to talk to you about why they would make the best candidate for Superior Court Judge in Gwinnett County. Again, I'm your host, Edward Paul, First Vice President and Political Action Committee Chair, along with my President Penny Poole. Just a couple election reminders before I have President Poole go into suspending our meeting. May 2nd is early voting, so please get out, take advantage of early in-person voting from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There also will be weekend voting for this upcoming election, May 7th and 8th, which is Saturday and Sunday, and then May 14th and 15th, which is another Saturday and Sunday. If you're not able to get there during the week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you can take advantage of early voting on those weekends. Finally, absentee ballot deadline to request your application would be on May 13th. And just a friendly reminder, this election in May includes judicial election for all judges, which will be at the bottom of the ballot. If you have a Republican or Democratic ballot, the judges and the school board will be on the ballot as well. So if you live in certain districts, District 2 or District 4, your school board elections will be on the ballot come this May. And then, of course, you have your primary races where you get to pick which person you want to represent your particular party that you vote for in this upcoming general election in November. That being said, I will turn everything over to President Poole to basically get us started. So, President Poole, I'll let you take over from here about our general meeting.
Well, good evening to our beloved community, and welcome to our general meeting for the Gwinnett NAACP for April 2022. So we are actually not suspending it. We're having our meeting. However, our topics will be limited to the candidate forum. And we will also table the business, but continue forward. So, first of all, before we start, let us pray. Heavenly Father, Edward, would you please open us up with prayer? Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Heavenly Father, we want to just thank you for bringing us all here together tonight. We ask that you look after us, watch over our families, watch over our county, watch over our state, Lord. As always, continue to guide our Gwinnett NAACP unit, our state chapters, and all our NAACP units, not only in the state of Georgia, but throughout the country. Give us the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding we need to help deliver your people through these trying times. And as always, we ask you to watch over our family, our friends, our loved ones. And these things we ask in your son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. And thank you for that. At this point, we will call this meeting to order. And our first order of business is um, to acknowledge our minutes from last month. And what we would like to do is to put them into our put them into the meeting. Can I get a motion regarding accepting our minutes from our March 2022 meeting as recorded per Zoom and per our other media outlets?
Yes, make a motion to accept March minutes, which is automatically recorded virtually.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is discussion? As we have no discussion, we would like to take a vote for accepting the minutes of March 2022, our general meeting minutes, as video. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you for that. So we have recorded those minutes. And then the next order of business is to accept our reports as given by our committee members at our EC meeting that was held in March for our upcoming general meeting today. Um, can I get a motion to accept all of our EC committee meeting notes from March of 2022?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from our previous executive committee meeting back in March of this year, 2022.
Can we get a second? Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion to accept our committee minute meetings from our EC committee for March 2022. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor of accepting our EC committee meeting, committee reports for March 2022, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, great. So the committee reports are accepted. All of our members, if you have any questions or like to get copies, please contact us. We want to make sure that this information can be distributed on a timely basis. We thank you for being members, and let's get this forum on the road. Edward, if you would please introduce our first guest tonight.
And before I do, I'd like to thank Steve, one of our political action committee members, for joining the general meeting live to help us get through those reports. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
All right. All right. So now we'll bring on our guest. But before I do, let me just set the table. So, please, if you got any questions that you want to ask, please drop those questions in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. If you're on Twitter, please add us on Twitter. If you're trying to comment while you're watching the program in the Twitter chat, it won't work. You'll need to come out of the program and then add us and then ask your question that way. So tonight's forum is on Superior Court Judge. Like I said, the first set of candidates that's running for one of the seats for Superior Court Judge will be Judge Tim Hamill and then Attorney Karen Scott Greene in the first hour. Second hour, we'll have Judge Tracy Kaysen and Attorney Andre Johnson. So what is a Superior Court Judge? Superior Court judges preside over all felony trials, divorces, equity cases, and matters regarding title of land. They may also have jurisdiction over civil law actions, misdemeanors, and other cases. They also may hear appeals from the lower court. So now that we've went over pretty much a brief introduction of what a Superior Court Judge jurisdiction is, this is one of the highest courts outside of the state Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals in the state of Georgia. So again, now that we'll bring on our guests, allow them to introduce themselves. Our first guest that we'll bring on will be Judge Tim Hamill. And then we'll also bring on Attorney Karen Scott Greene. But first, Judge Hamill, I'll allow you to speak first. Can you introduce yourself to the Gwinnett County residents?
Okay, and before he starts, excuse me for not being rude, we want to make sure that we give ample time and we run smoothly. So if you see this, we're going to be timing. That means we are putting a 3-minute time aside. If this comes up, that means you have 30 seconds left. So this is your reminder that you have 30 seconds left so that we can get the best answer possible from you. And we want to make sure, also with housekeeping, that everyone is polite, that this is a safe space for people to speak their mind. We will not tolerate any fishing or any type of dog whistles to our guests, to our community. This is a place where people may speak freely. With that being said, Judge Hamill, thank you.
Thank you, President Poole, And thank you, Vice President Paul. I sincerely appreciate the invitation this evening from the Gwinnett County NAACP. I so appreciate y'all having this forum tonight. My name is Tim Hamill. I have been a Gwinnett County judge for 23 years. 20 of those I've been a Superior Court judge. Prior to being a judge, I was an attorney. I've been an attorney since 1985. As a practicing attorney, I practice law throughout North Georgia. I've practiced in small counties. I practiced in large counties. I did transactional work and I did a lot of litigation. My experience uniquely qualified me to be a Superior Court judge because I handled both criminal cases and family law cases. Superior Court judges handle serious cases, cases that affect families and felony criminal cases. These cases affect our daily lives, and that's why this election is so important to us. As a Superior Court judge, I've gained a reputation for being trusted. I have been trusted to handle the most serious cases with fairness and with care, and I've proven worthy of that trust. I've also got a reputation for being fair. As a Superior Court judge, I have a reputation for being fair to every litigant that appears before me. I'm experienced. As a Gwinnett County judge for over 23 years, I've handled serious cases, hundreds of serious cases for the people of Gwinnett County. It is my goal to protect the citizens of Gwinnett County as a Superior Court judge. I've been working for justice and upholding the law for over 23 years as a judge, and I'm asking for your vote as we come to the May election. Thank you so much again for this opportunity. I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you. And Attorney Karen Scott Greene, if you'll come off mute and introduce yourself to the people.
Thank you for having me, President Poole and Vice President Paul. It's an honor to be before you here with the Gwinnett NAACP. I am Karen Scott Greene, and I'm a candidate for Gwinnett County Superior Court Judge. A little bit about myself. I went to law school in Georgia at St. Thomas University, Miami, Florida, came to Georgia to go to Georgia Tech, took the bar while I was at Georgia Tech, and I started my career. I worked at Clark Atlanta University at the Center for Studies in Public Policy. I have a master's in city planning. And after I left Clark Atlanta University, I went to work for the Cobb County Law Department, where I was an assistant county attorney. And as an assistant county attorney, my clients were public works, land development, and planning. And after I left the law department, I then went into do a real estate practice. And I did that for a couple of years before going out on my own. The majority of my career, I have been a solo practitioner. I've done family law, doing divorces, custody modifications, and also real estate as a real estate attorney, doing closings, also helping with zoning applications. I've represented clients in bankruptcy and in real estate. So I have a wealth of experience in a variety of areas in both civil and criminal law. And I believe that that experience is what makes me also uniquely qualified to be on the bench. I have dealt with clients in some of the most challenging times of their lives, from losing their homes to foreclosure, from dealing with bankruptcy and having been financial crisis, and also dealing with divorce and with criminal matters. And so I understand what it means to go into that courtroom and not feeling like you have been heard. And so I bring that with me. And I know that sitting on the bench, I will bring compassion, also rule fairly and just. And I believe those are the things that make me uniquely qualified to be a judge.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Let me see here if we got any questions in the chat, and if not, and like I said, please drop you all's questions in the chat. Yes, I don't see any in there right now, so we'll just get started with some of the questions we've solicited from our unit.
And I'd like to jump out of just jump out with that big question. because we want to set egos aside. And setting egos aside, why should voters support you over your opponent? That clear and simple. What makes you the better candidate for Superior Court judge in Gwinnett County, Georgia? Attorney Scott Greene, if we could have your response.
And so my response to that question would be that I am committed to furthering the goals of criminal justice reform. There's been a lot of push recently in this county even, and our district attorney has made some efforts, and this court has made some efforts, and I am committed. And in the work that I've done with Parent Leadership Institute and also with Gwinnett Stop, I've been committed to making reforms. And so I would like to see that work follow through with making more reforms there in the court. And so I think that makes a difference in this election, because a lot of the citizens are calling for not only justice, but they want compassion when judges are ruling. They want to know that when folks come into the courtroom, that their stories are heard. And sometimes that's not the case. And so I will bring that into the courtroom. You know that when I'm sitting in front of you, that I'm hearing your story and I'm weighing it fairly. And that's the difference. That's what I bring to this election.
Thank you. And Judge Hamill, can we get that same question for you? Why should voters support you over your opponent?
Come off mute, Judge. It gets everybody every time.
And it's not like the Zoom where you can just hit the space bar and come off mute. You have to actually click the mouse. I'm sorry about that. I meant to be a little bit more cognizant of the mute. I just wanted to be respectful to my opponent for her answer. I appreciate that question. You know, these are serious and challenging times that we're in. Our society is going through wholesale change as we speak, and I certainly recognize that. But along with that, we have to have the kind of experience that will allow people who need to make these serious decisions recognize that change, but also provide an experienced solution to those problems. You know, Superior Court judges, there's a lot of misconception about what kind of authority we have. And Governor Deal, during his administration, was a big proponent of criminal justice reform. And frankly, Superior Court judges welcome that kind of change. There is no one-stop solution to every case that comes before us. Part of the thing that aggravates me as a sitting Superior Court judge are mandatory minimum sentences. Those are onerous, and they are things that I think may sound good in theory, but in practice, they do not work well. But those are the kinds of things that the legislature has to change, because when I have the ability to depart from mandatory minimum sentences, I go through that process that the legislature has provided for me to carefully weigh what should happen in a particular case. When folks come into my courtroom, I give individual justice in individual cases, because every single person that comes in to my courtroom has a different story to tell, has a different life experience. And I'm very aware of that. And I try to be patient with that each and every day, because I want to hear what people have to say, what brings them to the courtroom, and how we can end up with a just solution in every single case. So I bring experience to the courtroom, and I think that experience is so vital to the citizens of Gwinnett County at this time. Thank you.
Okay. There were some words that both of you used. Justice, compassion, not liking the ability to have to rule against mandatory minimum sentencing. So a lot of those things that you touched on would relate to what you as an individual, your walk, where you have come from, those are the things that will help you make those decisions. So our next question for both of you is, what are your views on whether the court as a whole deals effectively with racial, gender, and implicit bias? And we touched on you bringing your perspective. So from your perspective, if we could start with Judge Tim Hamill. Thank you.
Again, thank you. Again, thank you so much for that question. I had to make sure I wasn't on mute. You know, again, we are in challenging and changing times. And I really do try, as to each and every case that comes before me, to give it that individual consideration. Your question addresses, of course, another facet of all of that. You know, I'm a lifelong learner, and all I can do is learn and try to address the things that I need to address in my life. And as a Gwinnett County Superior Court judge, I have been part of the bench-wide decision to have diversity and bias training that is now an annual facet of our Superior Court bench experience. And so what we do every year is we have a seminar every year so that we can try to improve, because none of us are perfect, and every single one of us needs to be improving ourselves each and every day. I would like to think that I run a perfect courtroom and do things exactly as they are supposed to be done. But you've got to be willing to self-examine and to look at yourself and to make sure that people that come before you are in fact being heard and are comfortable in the courtroom. Most people never get into a courtroom. Most people, the first time you see them, that's been the first time that they've been in a courtroom. And I want to make them as comfortable as possible, because these cases are so important to their family and to themselves and to their future. And I want to make sure they're heard. So I believe that anything we can do to improve ourselves and to make sure that we are addressing those kinds of things that cause people to be uncomfortable in the courtroom is most important. And I'm proud to have been part of the effort to move our court forward in that regard.
And then Judge Hamill, just to hit on the question real quickly, do you feel like the court system as a whole been doing a good job with effectively doing that? Not necessarily you personally, but I'm just saying, looking at the scope of city disparities, you know.
Chief Justice Benham put together a commission to address bias in the courtroom, and they have done a very good job at looking at structural matters within the court system. This does not involve racial questions, but for the longest time, interpreters were not provided in some very key moments for those of our citizens who don't speak English as their primary language. And so we've addressed that. So yes, I believe that we have addressed the kinds of structural problems that our courts have. I think the Chief Justice's Commission helped us do that. And again, there is always work to be done. That is a process that should be continuing and ongoing, and we should always be willing to improve.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Let's see if we can catch up, because we want to make sure that Attorney Scott Greene gets to answer that question, and then that part two. Okay? So that question was about what are your views on whether the court as a whole deals effectively with racial and gender and implicit bias? And from your point of view, how do you think that it would affect you in that position?
So, President Poole, unfortunately, I do not believe that as a whole that the courts have dealt effectively with race and bias as it comes to sentencing. We know that even here in Georgia, that Black and brown people are overrepresented in our jail and prison population. And so that means that we, as a community, as a judiciary, we need to do something different. There needs to be change. We need symposiums and panels are great. Bias training is great, but it's merely first steps until we're at a time when Black and brown folks are not being sentenced for longer sentences, having longer time than other communities, then we cannot say that we've done a good job or that we're doing a great job, because there's a lot more work to be done. And so I commend Gwinnett County for the work that it has done, but there's a lot more that has to be done. And the citizens I've been hearing this entire year that I've been campaigning from citizens who are saying, what are you going to do when you get on the bench? What are we going to do about the community? And this is Black, white, and brown who really believe that it is not an equal justice system. And I want to be a part of that solution. And that's why I'm running.
Thank you for that. Edward, could you ask the second part of that question you asked previously to Judge Hamill?
Well, no, she answered it. And she
did?
pretty much, yeah, she answered it.
Oh, okay.
We do got some, you want to go to some of the questions in the chat? We do got a couple questions in the chat.
Please, let's go.
All right. So since we'll let you go since you're still on the screen, Attorney Scott Greene says, what do each of you think about the criminal justice reform measures in Georgia? This is from Law Chick 1000.
I think Georgia is on the cusp, right there on the cusp of some fundamental changes, because we're seeing it in court systems. We're seeing it in DeKalb County. Judge Asha Jackson has a court program that our DA has recently implemented, a similar program where she's taking these first offenders and she's putting them in these diversion programs. And she has said that she hasn't seen any of these young people come back through her program. What she's doing is she's offering them the opportunity to get not only high school diplomas, but get technical certificates as well, so they can be gainfully employed. Because it's not enough to just tell people to get a high school diploma. What are you going to do once you get that high school diploma? You're going to go work at McDonald's. You can't support a family. So what's going to happen? That cycle is going to continue. So I support moves and efforts for criminal justice reform, but we have to make it all the way. We have to take it all the way through, and that includes providing education, providing resources to education, technical schools. So this is community buy-in that we need. We need our technical schools. We need GED programs that will work with the courts and work with pretrial diversion programs that will give people alternatives, because we don't want to see them back. We want to stop that cycle, and we have to do something different, because what we've done in the past, and I say we as a community, as a collective, what's been done in the past hasn't worked. And so while it's wonderful that we have a lot of experience on the bench, what's been done in the past hasn't worked. So we do need to do something different.
Thank you. And all right, and Judge Hamill, I put the question back up. It says, what do each of you think about the criminal justice reform measures in Georgia? From Law Chick 1000.
Well, as I alluded to earlier, I think criminal justice reform has been a great success in Georgia. It has kind of changed the dynamic in the court system. And those are the kinds of measures that I was referring to earlier. For instance, as I said, these onerous mandatory minimum sentences that frankly handcuff a judge when he is looking at a particular case. Those are the kinds of things that the legislature has been increasingly addressing. And I think that that's the kind of thing that we need to look at further. Again, we can always improve. Criminal justice reform is something that has got a long way to go. There's no doubt about it. But again, these are legislative measures, and we have to follow what the legislature provides to us in terms of sentencing parameters and guidelines. The first criminal justice reform measure that I had to implement in my courtroom was something as simple as equal strikes. It used to be that the different sides in a criminal case had different strikes. And so they implemented equal strikes in Georgia for jury selection. Also, how closing argument was handled. Those are the kinds of things that make our process much simpler and easy to follow and more understandable, more transparent. I think that's what we want for our system is transparency. And I think criminal justice reform, as has been implemented so far, and as it looks like we will implement in the future, is exactly that kind of transparency that our public deserves. And more importantly, it in fact translates to individuals and individual cases, which is so important to those who are coming through the system. No one wants to see a defendant come back to court again. There's no doubt about that. And I don't want to ever set a defendant up to fail as part of their sentence. I have no problems whatsoever when a case comes before me and the recommended sentence is just going to load a defendant up with these incredibly hard to follow conditions. I want to make sure that a defendant leaves the courtroom understanding, here's what I need to do in order to navigate this sentence, get through this, and get on with the rest of my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Hamill. And
Well, at this, I think I've got a question at this point because they both answered it. And at this point, I'm a little confused. I know that the legislature sets sentencing and parameters, but if all things were equal, then the new Jim Crow, which refers to our jail system, and then the disparities in numbers, it shows that it's not just the law is failing or needs changing, but again, the numbers of those who are incarcerated, no matter what the sentencing parameters, show that there is disparity on Black people and other people of color versus our white population. So, as an organization who we advocate for the community as a whole, but specifically, we're seeing African American and Black people come through these systems. What do you believe are the causes of the high rates of Black people and other people of color being incarcerated? Why do these people show up at your court more than others? And then they also receive stiffer sentences. Judge Hamill?
Well, President Poole, with all due respect, I would absolutely challenge your assertion that they get stiffer sentences in my courtroom. I want to talk about what I'm doing. I want to talk about what happens in my courtroom. And again, I think that every litigant, criminal defendant, family cases, they all come into the courtroom and they are unique. They have unique life experiences. And I don't think that anyone has ever asserted or contended that there's any disparity in sentencing in my courtroom. Uh-oh, the sign just fell down a little bit. Anyway, I want every person to come in the courtroom to be treated in the same way. And I can only deal with the cases that come into my courtroom. The district attorney brings those cases, and I have to deal with those cases. My charge, my requirement is that I move those cases as quickly as I can, giving every person the opportunity to have a full and fair hearing. And I absolutely want that in my courtroom. So I would love to talk about experiences in my courtroom and the fact that people that come into my courtroom are not treated any differently when it comes to how their case is heard or the sentences that they receive.
Thank you for that response. And let me clarify that we were not trying to personally indict your courtroom, but we were talking about the system in Gwinnett County that you, as a jurist, sit on, who has been in this system for multiple years. So your courtroom might be exempt. However, on a whole, not just Gwinnett, not just the state of Georgia, but nationally, this is an issue. So we were trying to get you to address this, not personally, since your courtroom, you say is different, but it still is a problem that is affecting us. And we need jurists like you to make a difference with your other counterparts. So please, it's not a personal indictment on you. It is an indictment of the system that you so freely have been operating in for over 20 years.
And Ms.
Okay,
President
yes,
Poole,
sir.
I sincerely appreciate your question. I certainly did not feel attacked by your question. I just wanted to
Okay.
make clear that I feel like that that we need to look at this particular race, and everybody wants to be an agent for change. There's no doubt about it. And the way I try to be an agent for change is I try to run a courtroom that is an example for how courtrooms should be run. And all I can do is take care of my area that I'm in and try to. I talk to colleagues all the time who call
Sir?
me for
Okay, so
advice.
we want to get back on the question part, because
Yes,
I
ma'am. I
wanted to
understand.
clarify to the audience. I was not trying to, so that was a clarification point.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm
Thank you.
sorry if you felt that you had to do a rebuttal, but it was not about a rebuttal. Again, it was about the system
Yes,
in
ma'am.
Gwinnett County.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Thank
let's
you.
get your counterpart to give a response to that question. Okay. We talked about, and let me back it up so that I can give it to you, Attorney Scott Greene. We talked about the system and saying what was not, that mandatory minimums are there. However, it is a fact that throughout our country, throughout this county, that there is a disparity on who is being incarcerated. So again, that question was, what do you believe? And I'll say the question so that we can get it clearly. What do you believe are the causes of the high rates of Black people being incarcerated? So not you, since you are not on the bench, this will not affect you as the judge, but that is the question. And I want to say it one more time for clarity. What do you believe are the causes of the high rates of Black people being incarcerated?
So that's a loaded question, right? Because we know from I've lived in predominantly Black communities my entire life. And we know that in some areas where we live, we're over policed. So if you're over policed and you're looking for something, you're going to find it. And that's not to say that crime is not being committed, but sometimes there are instances where things escalate and folks get arrested. And you have people who are brought into the criminal justice system, which would have been something that may not have been an instance where they would have been arrested. But because they're being overly policed, they're being stopped at higher rates for things that someone else may have gotten a ticket for, or just let them drive away. So it really is a loaded question. There's so many things that go into that, from being overly policed to sometimes we've heard and we know that when it comes to being charged, Black and brown people are overcharged. higher charges than other races. And so you're getting higher offenses, you're policed heavier. And then when it comes to sentencing, we know that nationally, even in Georgia, that Black and brown people are receiving higher sentences. Yes, we do have mandatory minimums on some things, not everything. And where there is discretion, that's where we see the discrepancies. And that's where we need to do the work. And so, as a judge, when you have other judges in your circuit, as a collective, they can come together and make decisions about how they want to handle cases and work with the district attorney for which cases that they want to send to pretrial, how, which cases are eligible for people to not, that they can be released on an OR bond, be released when someone is not a serious offense and they don't pose a threat to reoffend. And there's factors that they can look at to make those determinations. We can get people out of the system a lot quicker. So there are tools, there are things that we can do as jurists and as a community to get some of these numbers down. But we have to be willing to do that. And so while one judge does sit on one case at a time, the collective body of judges can work together with the DA's office to discuss what types of cases that they want to push through, what types of cases that they want to see to go to pretrial diversion based upon factors that they establish. So those things can be done.
Okay, thank you. And that point about judicial discretion, that is where we were getting to with that question. Thank you so much. Okay. Edward, do we have any other questions in the chat?
Yeah, from Law Chick 1000. She said, what will you bring to the family law docket to encourage fewer ongoing issues between separating, divorcing families? You can go, Attorney Scott Greene, since we already got y'all.
So there are, and one of the things I think that Fulton could do is, that Gwinnett can do is, I was going to use the example of Fulton County. Fulton County uses judicial assistants, judges' assistants that actually hear portions of family law cases. And so when there's motions that are to be heard, they can hear those things, they can handle discovery disputes. And so to kind of streamline some of those things, they can use like hearing officers to help with the caseload, to help streamline some of the family law cases. I think Fulton is a great example of how that could be handled. And I think that's something that Gwinnett County could do. And if they wanted to use the magistrates to do that, they could, or they could actually set up mediators to work in that arena, to work as hearing officers, to hear discovery disputes, to hear motions that are coming before the court, to take the less serious matters from family court off of the judge's plate.
Thank you for the answer. Judge Hamill, same question. I'll put it back up in case you need to see that again. So this is from Law Chick 1000. She said, what would you bring to the family law docket to encourage fewer ongoing issues between separated and divorcing families?
Over the last several years, the concept of cooperative parenting has become a big topic in the divorce arena. Gwinnett County has a fantastic divorcing parent seminar. It is a program that we use the Family Law Center to come in and give divorcing parent programs to have the skill sets given to our parents as they go through this new territory. Nobody wants to get divorced. Nobody gets married to get divorced. There's going to be conflict in every single case. but how that conflict is managed is so important. And these programs are so vital to opening that line of communication between the parties. We have had the Divorcing Parents Seminar for a number of years. I think it's an extraordinarily effective program, but there are still cases that continue to have that high level of conflict. And so we have instituted a new program that is for those high conflict cases to help further emphasize that this is a partnership. Even though you're not going to be married any longer, people need to think beyond themselves. They need to think about what the most important aspect of this case, and that's not themselves, and that's not dividing up the pots and pans. It's the children that are involved in these cases. And they are the collateral damage in these cases each and every day. And so those seminars so much help with establishing those lines of communication. I tell parents as they go through these seminars that they need to listen carefully to what's being said, because no one wants to think that they're causing a problem. But every single one of us in our communication styles, in the way we address problems that come to us, we want to think it's not us, it's them. And so these seminars help parents as they're going through this extraordinarily difficult time focus on what's important in this case. And what's important in their case is the fact that they have children who are like sponges. They are soaking up all of these things that are happening around them. And if you want to talk about cycles, you can have cycles involved in parents that get divorced because, unfortunately, high conflict parents that get divorced many times lead to children that go through that same thing. And none of us want that. So this family law seminar program for both just everyday cases and for high conflict cases has been extraordinarily successful in helping us deal with these kind of issues.
Thank you. All right, so Judge Hamill, you can stay on the screen. I did have a question. This came from one of the members in my legal redress team. Let me go to her question. She didn't submit it on time, so she texted to me. So give me a minute to pull it up here. She said she has some concerns about the condition of the indigent defense in Gwinnett. So what is your position on the current indigent defense that Gwinnett County has currently set up?
Well, she's hit on a topic that is of great concern to me.
And before you answer the question, set the table for the audience of what that is, and then you can answer the question if you don't.
Yes, sir. Several years ago, the state of Georgia implemented a program to have public defender offices throughout the state. And certain counties that made application and were able to show that they had a good ongoing system were allowed to what is called opt out of that system. Gwinnett County has traditionally had an extraordinary indigent defense system. We have a committee of local attorneys led by David Lipscomb, who's done great work keeping this system going forward. We have what are called panel attorneys. We have A through D list attorneys. A list attorneys are those attorneys who handle the most serious of cases, murders, rapes, trafficking cases, what you would call the 7 deadly sins cases. And the B list cases, attorneys handle felony cases, but not quite so serious of cases. And those are the 2 panels of attorneys that I deal with mostly. I have been a huge proponent of our indigent defense system because, number one, it keeps these great attorneys working these cases in our system. I get worried about public defender offices being overloaded with high caseloads and with inexperienced attorneys. That we don't want that. We want criminal defendants to have the best representation possible because the consequences of these cases are so high. Over the last several years, our indigent defense list has dwindled a little bit, and we are doing everything we can to recruit people to come back onto the list. We have raised the hourly rate that we pay attorneys. We have cut down on the number of cases assigned to these attorneys. But yes, our indigent defense list is certainly something that is of grave concern, and it's something that we have to work on constantly to make sure that Gwinnett County continues to be a world-class county as we want to be in terms of all services that we provide, and including indigent defense to our defendants who cannot afford to hire an attorney on their own and are appointing an attorney to represent them in this incredibly important time in their lives.
Okay, thank you. So so basically what you're saying is the program is fine. Y'all may just need to ramp up on adding more people to the program since the numbers dwindle, but you're okay with the program.
I think the program is excellent, and I sincerely want it to continue because I do worry about us transitioning to a public defender system. Unfortunately, increasingly, the public defender conversation is one that is being had, and I'm hoping to avoid that situation as long as possible because I think there are some very real problems. I just don't feel like that the representation for our criminal defendants is as good with a public defender system. I think that the system of an opt-out system is the way to go. We have to reapply, and the state council has to look over our system each and every time that we reapply. And so I want to maintain that system, but it is certainly not something that we want to continue on just because it's the way we've always done it. We need to always re-examine whether this is the best system for Gwinnett County citizens at this present time.
Okay. All right. I'm going to give, before I state our position on, I'll let Attorney Scott Greene go.
I have to, in full disclosure, I would be a little bit biased because I was one of those criminal defense attorneys on the indigent defense list. So, okay. And I happen to know that those attorneys are excellent attorneys. They also, not only do they take indigent defense work, but they also have private practices where they also do criminal law. And so they bring the same zealous advocacy to their court-appointed clients as they do to their retained clients. That list has brought us Judge Harris, who sits now in juvenile court and was in recorder's court. He came from the indigent defense list. He had a lot of cases on there. Wesley Pearson, who's now sitting in recorder's court, was also on the indigent defense list. So, you know, it has worked and it can work. I think the issue now is getting attorneys to commit to that type of work. When quite frankly, they can make a lot more money taking privately retained cases. And so if that is not going to work, if it's no longer serving the county because there's not enough attorneys, then we may need to look at going to a public defender system. And I know attorneys who work in the public defender's office, and let me tell you, these are some of the best trained lawyers in the country. And they will out-litigate anyone. I've practiced against them, and they are good lawyers. And so, you know, on either side, you're going to get a good attorney on either the public defender side or on the indigent defense side from having the list that Gwinnett County currently has. But again, I am a little bit biased because I did come off of, I was on that list for a number of years. But public defender's office, they're great attorneys as well. And they have a lot of experience because they're litigating all the time. They're in court, they're paneling juries, and they often, there was a comment from Ruth Rocker McMillan. Ruth Rocker McMillan came out of the public defender's office, and she's now as assistant clerk of court, but she's an excellent litigator. So people will often make comments about public defenders. And even when I was on the indigent defense list, clients would always say, oh, you're a public, I knew I should have got a real lawyer. I am a real lawyer. If you were paying for me, you have to pay a retainer. So, thank you. But either system is an excellent system, honestly.
Okay. I mean, I know as far as us as a unit, we've got some concerns with the current system, especially around the dwindling people that's taking it. I'm hearing things like the budget is lumped in with the judge's budget, and there's a lot of control. So it's just a conflict of interest with the way the current system is set up and how the county is budgeting it. Whereas we feel like and then accountability, what accountability do this private system or these private judges have to the people that they're serving, since they're, it's a private set up structure and not one that's set up through the county where there's a little more accountability. So we do got some concerns with it. We've had some debates in our legal redress and political action committee meetings. I wouldn't even say debates, more heated discussions about frustration with the current system from people that know that system very well. So that's why we wanted to raise that question, because one of our members in our political action committee and legal redress committee asked that question.
Can I just say that because as attorneys, we are governed by a set of ethics, right? Mm-hmm. And those ethics apply to whether or not it's a privately retained client or a court-appointed client. It is my obligation to represent my clients zealously. And so whether or not I get paid $60 an hour from the county or $75 an hour from the county, or whether or not somebody's giving me a $5,000 or $10,000 retainer, I have to work for them just the same.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And at this point, Judge Hamill, do you have a rebuttal on that? And again, I want to reiterate the NAACP stance also. As a advocacy organization, we have people calling us who says that their court-appointed attorney is not representing them, is not for their best interest. And we, of course, are always called the last moment. So we, just like you, we see a different slice of this pie. And when we see this pie, it is people who are feeling that the representation may be more about them not having the ability to spend time with them, to know their case, to know their name, to meet with them. And a lot of people feel unrepresented. So I guess at this point, it's not about the quality of that person, but because of the way the system is right now, people feel that there, again, something both of you reiterated, that there may not be enough time. And these, it's full, the calendar is full, and you're looking for people to work. In fairness, Judge Hamill, do you have a rebuttal to that?
Well, I would love to talk further about the indigent defense system. People deserve excellent representation. And as Ms. Greene just said, you get defendants that come into courtroom and they want to talk about their free attorney as if that attorney is not providing them the kind of representation that they ought to. And what I find so interesting about that is you want to talk about some great attorneys. We've got some of the best attorneys that I have ever encountered on our A list. And sometimes when I have discussions with attorneys, with defendants, I say, if I ever get in trouble, this is one of the attorneys that I'm going to call to help me out with my case. And I find incredibly zealous representation on both the A list and the B list. Those are the lists that
Okay.
I deal with.
All right.
And so I understand people are in a time where they are very fragile. They have these consequences that are facing them, so they need to be confident in their attorney. But my experience has been that the attorneys in Gwinnett County on our indigent defense list provide that kind of preparation and advocacy that any of us who were in that situation would want to have. And I talked to colleagues across the state that have public defender systems, and you hear those exact same concerns about public defender offices through the state, because those attorneys are not nearly as well paid as many of our private practice attorneys are paid, and the caseloads that they have, because they are understaffed and frankly underfunded. So let me address Vice President Paul just a moment.
Right.
The indigent defense budget in Gwinnett County is in no way associated with the court system. That is a totally separate function. We are not in any position to spend any of that money. We don't make the request for that money, and we have no control over that money whatsoever. And each and every year, our county commission has generously funded that budget such that we never have concerns about money problems with indigent representation
Okay, so
in our
Judge Hamill,
county.
Judge
Yes, ma'am.
Hamill, we
Yes,
just
ma'am.
wanted we were not going to be giving you the 3 minutes. So
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how much time I had. I'm
Right.
sorry.
I apologize for interrupting you on that.
Oh, no
Right.
problem.
But again, since we gave Attorney Karen Scott Greene a rebuttal, we wanted to make sure to give you one also.
Thank you so much.
But again, this is a problem, for our future. And again, all of our constituency has been saying the exact opposite. So this is something that needs to be researched and get to find out more information about. Okay, thank you for that. Let's, at this point, we want to give you a breath with one last question. We're going to do this we're going to do it down to 2 minutes because we're running out of time. Plus, we need your elevator speech because we do have two more people coming up after you tonight. So take your big breaths. We want you to get ready for this last question, and we're only going to give you 2 minutes for this. And this question is, what are the 3 most important issues facing Gwinnett County Superior Court? And what measure would you enact as a member of the Judiciary to address them? Let's start with you, Judge Hamill.
Not a lot of time to prepare for that question.
Well, you've been in 23 years. Give it your best shot.
Well,
this is time.
And frankly, the concerns that I have as we sit here in this moment of time is that we were not allowed to have jury trials for over a year. And so we've got a backlog of cases that I'm trying to address. I am on a statewide committee to allocate money on the American Rescue Plan Act. We're allocating $96 million to courts throughout this state to address the backlog of these cases. And that's my main concern, is that we get this backlog of cases that happen because of COVID, that we get those addressed. That's the main problem that I see here. My other concern is that we make sure that we have a transparent court, that people understand what's going on in their courts. That's why every time I have a case that comes into my court, I carefully explain the procedure that we will use and what the possible results are in that case. I am a big proponent of our accountability courts. We need to expand those accountability courts because they are a vital resource to people who are struggling with drug addiction, mental health issues, inability to pay with our accountability courts for parents. And I've also been someone who wants to see our pretrial intervention and diversion program expanded. That is a very valuable program that I've been participating in when cases are brought to me by the district attorney's office, and I would like to continue to see us expand that program. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. And Attorney Karen Scott Greene,
Okay.
what are the three most important issues facing Gwinnett's Superior Court? What measure will you enact as a member of the Judiciary to address them? This is 2 minutes, and thank you.
Thank you for the question. The first thing I see as an issue is the use of technology. We can use technology to deal with the backlog, and it would also provide access to for folks who would have to travel, take days off from work to come to court. So we can use things like Zoom, WebEx, to be able to handle routine motions, to be able to handle if there's a discovery dispute, if there is what we call calendar call, where we're just finding out what the status is of the case. Instead of everyone having to track down to the courthouse and someone having to take a day off of work, or even attorneys who have to be in multiple courtrooms, technology could be the fix, part of the fix for dealing with the backlog. And then the second thing that I would say would be dealing with how to implement some of the criminal justice reforms that we've talked about. And so while Gwinnett has started doing that, I would like to see that expanded and have some real effort put into how do we keep people out of prison. Folks are going to go to prison for some things, but for some things we can divert for crimes that include drugs or where someone does not have serious bodily injury. Those are the types of things that we can keep people out of prison for. And so we can use pretrial diversion for that. Those are the things that I see.
Okay, thank you for that. At this point, we want to thank you for coming. We want you to give us your elevator speech, and we're going to make this 1 minute. So you've been, talking to us on all different levels. Tell us again, with all this that you have talked about, we talked about implicit bias, we talked about pretrial diversions, we talked about so many things. Why should you be elected to this position here in Gwinnett County in 2022? Because we know that on May 24th, all of the judges will be elected, and that you as citizens, we as citizens, need to pick a ballot, a party ballot, go down to the bottom and select the nonpartisan judicial candidate of our choice. Let's start with you, Attorney Karen Scott Greene.
Thank you. And so why you should vote for me, because I have 27 years of legal experience that covers civil and criminal matters. And when you're sitting in front of me in the courtroom, you know that I will hear you, your voice will be heard, your story will be told. Doesn't mean that I'm going to rule in your favor, but know and understand that I will be patient. I will rule with compassion and fairness when you're sitting in front of me.
Thank you for that. And Judge Tim Hamill, again, the question to you, why should you, with all these topics we talked about, why should you be our Superior Court judge in Gwinnett County, Georgia?
President Poole and Vice President Paul and all of the members of the Gwinnett County NAACP, I so much appreciate the opportunity to come to you tonight, to be with you, to answer these questions. I hope it's given you some idea about who I am and what my experience is as a judge in Gwinnett County. I have been an elected Gwinnett County judge for 23 years. I'm asking for your vote as I seek re-election as a Gwinnett County Superior Court judge. Superior Court judges handle the most serious of cases, from family law cases to serious violent felonies. I've handled hundreds of these serious cases, and I have a reputation as being a hardworking, courteous, and fair judge. People know that I will listen to them and I will be fair. I'm asking for your vote on May 24th as I seek re-election as your experienced, trusted, and fair Gwinnett County Superior Court judge. Please visit my website at timhamill.com for more information. Again, thanks to the Gwinnett NAACP.
Thank you. Edward, do you have any other last remarks with our two guests tonight? I want to personally thank you for coming. Thank you for being open, and thank you for your time. Edward, back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate you all. Friendly reminder, again, judges are only on the ballot in May. They will not be on the ballot in November. Early voting starts May 2nd from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you can go ahead and request an absentee ballot right now and submit your absentee ballot application. So again, thank you, Attorney Karen Scott Greene, Judge Tim Hamill, and good luck to the both of you. Thank you all for coming on to the show this evening.
Thank you for having me.
All right, at this time, before we transition for the second half of our hour, we're going to bring in our youth advisor for our newly reactivated Gwinnett NAACP Youth Council, our youth advisor, Alexandria Chirac. If she'll come off mute, give us an update on the upcoming events for Youth Council, because I believe coming up this Saturday, I think, and have a meeting later this month. So give us some.
But they are going to be in Atlanta. It was fantastic. So if you can go and see the show, that would be great. Tomorrow, we do have a voter registration drive, membership drive, and it's going to be from 4 to 6 at the Boys and Girls Club. The address is 5360 Old Norcross Road, Norcross, Georgia, 30071. And that is tomorrow, April 13th from 4 to 6. So hopefully everyone can come out to that for the voter registration drive, membership drive. And then we have another event coming up this Saturday, April 16th. This is going to be from 12 to 2. This is when we're going to have our celebration, reactivation, fundraiser. So it's going to be a great time. We're going to be at Flavortown, which is a brand new business in Dakula. So please come out and let's support. And let's see here, 10% of everything that's purchased will go back to the Gwinnett NAACP Youth Council. So yes, their address is 2300 Liam Avenue Northeast, Dakula, Georgia, and the zip code is 30019. We will be there from 12 to 2. So if you want to come, meet us, say hello, support us, that would be fantastic. And then we have another event coming up with Family Promise of Gwinnett, which is a women's shelter, women and children. They're doing some great things in Gwinnett County. We are going to go out and help them with their bed race. And that's going to be April 23rd. And for any youth that would like to come out and get service hours, you can. You get 3 service hours. Just please contact me so that I can sign you up. I will give you my email address. My email is Chirac. It's CHYRACK 777@gmail.com. Also, if you would like to join the Gwinnett NAACP Youth Council, you can do that at naacpgwinnett.org, and it is $10 to sign up. So that is what we have so far. I'm working with an amazing team, and I'm thankful to everyone. We have some great things coming up. And I thank you, everyone, for your support.
Thank you for that, Alexandria. Again, to our youth out there, please go to naacpgwinnett.org. If you're not a member, you can join there and be a member. And if you're already a member, please get involved. I mean, we definitely need as many of our youth showing up to our youth meetings and to any events. So get with your parents, get involved. We got a lot of things we want to do. Again, this is a safe space for our youth to come into and advocate for issues that's happening in the community, whether that's in school, outside of school, in the community. Again, this is a safe space for you to come have those conversations so that you can strategize around, advocating around any issues that you may be facing in your community or your neighborhood. So again, thank you again, Alexandra, for coming on. We're going to transition into our second half of our hour, which will be with our next group of guests. For those who was watching on Facebook, look like for some reason the system just stopped. I don't know what happened with Facebook, but it's not. If you all are unable to see us on Facebook, please transition to either YouTube or the Gwinnett NAACP Twitter page to continue watching. We do apologize. I'm not sure what's going on with Facebook right now, but it looked like the broadcast has slowed down or stopped on that platform for some reason. That being said, we'll bring on our next set of guests who are running for Superior Court Judge, which will be current incumbent Judge Tracy Kaysen and attorney Andre Johnson. We will bring you both in the room now, allow you to introduce yourselves to the public. So we'll start with incumbent Judge Tracy Kaysen first. We'll allow you to introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself, I guess, to the county for those who may already know you or may not know you. Go ahead.
Okay, and before she starts, we want to make sure we let each of our candidates know that beginning we will have 3 minutes for each question, and 30 seconds in we will put up this this sign to let you know that you're at the end of your time. Again, everybody, we want to be courteous. We want to make this a safe space. We request that people please do not we do not want any dog whistles, no any negativity. We want everybody to be able to express their voice. Again, thank you for joining, and let's hear from our candidates.
Well, thank you, President Poole and Vice President Paul. I certainly appreciate this opportunity to come before your group and to reintroduce myself. I met many of you the first time I ran in 2018. But for those that don't know me, I was a prosecutor for 21 years before I decided to run for judge. 18 of those years I was a prosecutor in Gwinnett. And I specifically chose to come to Gwinnett because this was known to be a great community. It was thriving, the diversity was growing, and it was known to have a great legal community. And I had always known I wanted to protect people. And so when I moved to Gwinnett, I continued that path and have dedicated my career to protecting the citizens of Gwinnett County. And that's not only the victims, but also those accused of crimes. I spent most of my career prosecuting crimes against children, child molestation and child abuse, and also sexual assault crimes. But prosecutors also protect the accused. We have to look at those cases and determine and make sure that law enforcement made their case by the book and didn't violate their rights, because a prosecution based on that would not be a good prosecution. I decided, though, that I wanted to expand my community service and run for judge so I could continue to protect individuals in this community, because obviously law enforcement is that first level of protection. Prosecutors are the second level of protection. Certainly defense attorneys are that next level of protection to make sure they're protecting their clients' rights. And then judges are that final arbiter. And I wanted to make sure I could provide that service to Gwinnett County. I am committed to this county. Most of my entire career has been serving this county and working in this county, and I love it. I love going to work every day. I love going out in this community. I love talking to the diverse individuals in this community, and I am passionate about making sure that I protect everyone that comes before me in this community.
Thank you for that, Judge Kaysen. Now, Attorney Andre Johnson, introduce yourself to the people.
Good evening, and thank you to the Gwinnett NAACP for this wonderful opportunity. My name is Andre Johnson. I am running for Gwinnett County Superior Court, Division 2. I'm a son, a father, a husband for the last 22 years, my wife, Gina. I have been a lawyer for, it'll be 25 years this October. I have handled civil litigation cases. My first job out of law school was working for a small civil firm doing personal injury cases and commercial real estate closings. I then worked for the public defender's office for 7 years. And then I worked as a assistant district attorney for 3 years. And after that, I've served and am currently serving as a special assistant attorney general, where I represent the Department of Family and Children's Services, the Office of Inspector General on food stamp fraud cases, as well as the Division of Child Support Services handling child support cases. And I have my own law practice as well. I have lived in Gwinnett for 20 years now, raised my kids right here in the Parkview cluster. My daughter graduated from Parkview last year. My son's in the 9th grade now. We love Gwinnett. We love living in Gwinnett. And I welcome an opportunity to serve Gwinnett in this role as your next Gwinnett County Superior Court judge. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And our next question, and let's start with you, Attorney Johnson. What are the most important qualities for a judge to possess?
I think some of the most important qualities are a judge must have integrity. A judge must have the experience necessary to hear the cases that come before he or she. And I think the judge also has to be a good listener, which really ties into fairness. A judge needs to be able to hear all of the parties, all of the different views, and make sure that in that regard, the process is fair. I think people believe the process is fair if they think they're heard. And so I think those are qualities that are important in a judge.
Thank you for that.
Okay, and Judge Kaysen, the same question for you. What are the most important qualities for a judge to possess?
Well, I think Andre is absolutely correct that a judge has to be a skilled listener. Obviously, that's our job. That's the core of what judges do. We listen to individuals, we listen to their issues. And then the second part of that, though, is that we need to make good, objective, and impartial decisions based on those individuals' different circumstances. And I tell you, one of the best things I've ever had is an individual that came in front of me. After I listened to their hearing, I ended up explaining my ruling, which was not in this one individual's favor. And he said to me, "You know, Your Honor, I didn't get what I came here to get, but you listened to me and I respect your decision." And to make sure that individuals feel heard, feel respected, are given dignity, those are crucial aspects that a judge must have and that I exhibit every day in the courtroom when I go to work.
All right. Thank you for that. And out there, while you're listening to us, please send us your questions. We would like to also include what you think from your point of view. Okay. Our next question. We're going to go, and again, we're delving into who you are and why you should be in this position. So we'd like to know next, what is cultural competence to you? And do you practice it? Because judicial discretion is the majority of who sits on this seat. So Judge Kaysen, again, what is cultural competency to you, and do you possess it?
Well, that's a fantastic question. And I will tell you, when I took the bench, I had a couple of divorces that involved individuals of Muslim heritage. And there were some issues that were raised in those divorces that I had not been familiar with, not having been raised in that faith. And so I reached out to an individual that I knew that was involved in the Muslim community, had a nonprofit, and I set up a meeting with that individual to see what things that I could be taking into account when I was hearing these cases. Certainly, I have to apply the law equally to everyone. But to the extent that I could accommodate some of those differences in those cultures, in those religions, or was there certain religious holidays that I needed to take into account that I wasn't perhaps used to? So I reached out and learned about that. Additionally, I had some civil cases that involved the Korean community and some investment programs that they had that I had not been familiar with. So I reached out to members of the Korean Bar Association and some other attorneys to ask them, hey, explain to me this investment plan. What do I need to know about it so that when I have more of these cases, I know how to deal with them? And I proactively did that. No one asked me to do it. I took it upon myself because I recognized that we have so many different cultures in this community. And to the extent that we can accommodate some of those things, we need to. Now, there's going to be times where we can't accommodate things because they're simply illegal in our country. But to the extent that they don't run afoul of our law and we can work them into our cases, whether it's criminal cases, domestic cases, or civil cases, I took it upon myself to learn that so that I would be able to do that.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Attorney Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
what is cultural competence to you, and do you practice it?
Cultural competency is just knowing and understanding other cultures, but integrating that understanding into your everyday life, into the decisions that you make, because we look at life through a certain lens, and to the extent that you know and understand other cultures, it just makes for a better process for everyone. In terms of practicing it, I was fortunate enough to attend train the trainers cultural competency training when I was a public defender at the Alex Haley Farm in Clinton, Tennessee, which was, I will just tell you as an aside, if you have a chance to go to the Alex Haley Farm, please go, because the food on that farm is just the absolute best food you're ever going to have. But I did do a 7-day cultural competency training there, train the trainers. We were supposed to be implementing some of those things in DeKalb. Unfortunately, that never happened. So I've got all the materials, all of the books on it. And it will be my hope that I live by that and have utilized that in my business and personal life, because I think it's very important when we're in the most diverse county in the state and the 7th most diverse county in the country.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. And Attorney Johnson, let's come with the next question for you. Do you think the court system is working for non-white people, or do you believe the civil or criminal justice system is breaking down?
I think that there is a crisis in the courts, and it's a crisis of confidence in terms of people of color, marginalized groups, feeling as if the justice system isn't working for them. I think that that the way that you address that is by what I talked about earlier, and that is listening, what we just talked about in terms of cultural competency, because I think when people are heard, not going to hear me say this over and over again, because this is the theme of my campaign, when people are heard and really heard, not just listened to, the process is something that they trust. I think everybody was holding their breath back when the Ahmaud Arbery case happened in Albany, and I think the reason was because there was at least a perception in certain communities that the decision might not be just, and that's a problem that each judge, no matter what your background is, has to take on individually and fight against by how people are treated in the courtroom by slowing the process down if you need to make sure that everybody feels a part of the process and doesn't feel marginalized. And those are easy words to say, but the thing is pressing it. So I do believe that there is a crisis, but I do believe it's solvable.
Okay, thank you, Judge Kaysen. And do you think the court system is working for non-white people, or do you believe the civil or criminal justice system is breaking down?
I don't believe it is breaking down. I do think we have things we need to work on, but I think we are making progress actually in that area. I think traditionally, of course, statistics will show and historical evidence will show that individuals of non-Caucasian descent have felt as if they were not treated fairly in the court system. And I think over the last few years, the court system has started to make progress in that area. Some of those things are like the pretrial diversion program that I helped start when I was at the DA's office. It's like the RED program that the current DA has started as well, that addresses some of those issues, because of course these cases start well before the court. It starts on the front lines with law enforcement. And so the courts are reactive to those cases that are coming in. The prosecutors and the district attorney's office get to decide what cases are coming into the court system. And so we are a reactive body. But I think that the courts have taken a proactive measure to start addressing those issues. So I don't think that it is crumbling. I actually think that we're rebuilding, and we've started to address those, and we're moving in the right direction. We certainly have more work to do, but to make sure that individuals understand the process, that they're explained the process. What people don't know is what scares people. And so to the extent that we can be transparent, that we can explain what's going on, then those individuals will not feel marginalized. They will feel a part of the system and a part of the solution.
Okay, thank you. For our next questions, we talked about the system, whether it's breaking down, how both of you touched on the idea of reform. Let's get specific, and let's talk about what that looks like again, because we did touch with the other judges about the new Jim Crow, who is being arrested, who is being stopped and profiled, who is getting longer terms, sentencing terms. From your perspective as a Superior Court judge, what's the specific programs, what specific discretion would you use as trying to abate what is happening to our system now? And we start with Judge Kaysen.
Well, thank you. I think, as I indicated, obviously the courts are reactive. We are towards the end of the line of the whole criminal justice process. So we're limited in what we can do based on what comes in front of us. But to the extent that we need to increase our pretrial diversion programs, like the program that I created when I was with the DA's office, those nonviolent, non-serious cases that need to be diverted, cases that don't even come in front of me. They're cases that the DA's office determines can be diverted from the system. Those individuals are given tools. They're educated on how not to make those decisions, because all individuals that commit crimes are not criminals. They're not evil people. A lot of people make bad decisions based on their circumstances. So to the extent that we can educate them, teach them how to make better circumstances, we need to do that. And so make sure we increase those programs. One of the things I do in my courtroom, it may sound very small, but I think is a huge difference. I don't give large fines. typically will cut the fines that the district attorney is recommending, because I'm not going to penalize people for not being economically stable. All we're doing is setting those individuals up for failure. So I'll do something else. I'll do community service. But I'm not going to load an individual up with a lot of fines when really all we're doing with that is just punishing poor people for being poor. And so we've got to make sure we're looking at what those sentences are. Are they appropriate to the crime that's been committed? Are they going to set that individual up for failure? Are they going to assist that individual and perhaps coming to a realization of not making those decisions in the future? And we've got to continue on with those rehabilitative programs.
Attorney Johnson, if you would answer the same question, please.
Yes, ma'am. I think the problem is systematic. I believe it starts all the way back in the school system with the school to prison pipeline. And then I do agree with Judge Kaysen. The courts are reactive in terms of what happens once the case is before a judge. I think this ties into one of the things that I hope to do if I'm elected, and that is improve the relationship and reduce the distance between the court and the community. That means, if that means myself going into the schools and meeting with, mentoring individuals, improving those ties so that we are addressing the problem head on early on before it gets to the point where an individual is in front of you in court. And certainly I do think that to the extent that the judge has additional tools with respect to pretrial diversion, as well as the various accountability courts, and not criminalizing every single behavior, but really getting to the root of it and working to come up with creative solutions to address these problems, I think that begins to address the problem that you indicated in your question.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to Attorney Johnson. Okay. Why should voters trust that you can be a good superior court judge, even though you have no judicial experience?
I think that's a good question, and it's a fair question. I think that what I have done on the campaign trail is tried to be as transparent as possible and tell people who I am. And I think that my legal experience, and I've been lucky enough to have a diverse legal background when it comes to civil cases, criminal cases. When I gave my early spiel, President Poole, I wanted to make sure it was short. So I didn't get into handling 250 criminal cases a year when I was on the work through the Public Defender Standards Council, as well as I was on the appointed list here in Gwinnett. So I think being on the criminal side, prosecuting and defending cases, handling civil cases, handling family law cases, my experience has fortunately given me an opportunity to cover all of the areas of law, or the majority of a good chunk of law that a superior court judge is going to hear. And I think the 25 years of legal experience does give me the background to be a good and fair Gwinnett Superior Court judge.
Okay, thank you for that. And for Judge Kaysen, as a former district attorney of Gwinnett County, you've had to recuse yourself from a number of cases. How can you be an effective Superior Court judge when you may have to turn down taking so many cases, being a former county DA?
Well, thank you. Yes, absolutely. When I took the bench, because I had been a deputy chief with the district attorney's office, we transferred the current existing criminal caseload out of that division. It actually started building back up in December, the month before I took the bench, because I was no longer with the DA's office at that point. I had left a month early to get some start kind of doing some other judicial stuff before I actually was sworn in. But in exchange for that, even though my criminal caseload was building, I was transferred over about 1,200, not quite that many, probably about 1,000 civil and domestic cases, which brought my caseload up to over 1,500 civil and domestic cases. For reference, the next highest judge had about 670. So that first year I was in office, we worked hard. We got those cases through the system, and we cut that backlog in half. And so that was on a more manageable level. And I've been effective in addressing that civil and domestic backlog and keeping that case, those cases under control, while still now maintaining a full criminal caseload, because I have multiple murders, multiple drug trafficking. I've got a full criminal caseload, just like any other Superior Court judge. So there are no new cases that come in that I have to recuse myself on because I wasn't in the DA's office at the time. So I'm in the same position now as every other Superior Court judge that's on the bench. So there's no difference in me having to transfer cases out at this point.
Okay, thank you for that transparency. And we're going to switch gears a little bit right here. We know that there is much conversation regarding freedom of speech and hate crimes. And we would like to get you to address this area for us. In the area of hate crimes, what are some of the issues in balancing free speech rights against the need to control the safety and the community as a whole? If we can start with you, Judge Kaysen.
Absolutely. Certainly, we do have, everyone in this country has a First Amendment right, a freedom of speech, and that is an absolute constitutional right. The problem is when you combine that speech with action, and that's where the problem is. And when you combine it with action, then you're no longer really talking about free speech. You're talking about action. And just like we say, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, even though you have free speech rights, because that creates a danger to the community. So you have to balance that, and you have to look at what is it that we're actually punishing. And we're not punishing free speech. We're punishing actions. We're punishing actions that are based on preconceived notions about who somebody is because of their gender, their sexual identity, their ethnicity, their race, and then harming them based on that. And that is what is being punished and should be punished. It's not the speech. The speech alone is protected. It's that action that's based on those preconceived or those notions that someone has in their head about disliking someone because they're different from them. And that's what we're punishing. That's what the law is prohibiting, not just the speech, because we all have the ability to say and have that freedom of speech, but we can't then use that and use our actions and harm somebody because of that. And that's what we're prohibiting. And that doesn't implicate our free speech rights.
Okay. Thank you. Attorney Johnson?
Yes.
And I'll read this again for you. In the areas of hate crimes, what are some of the issues in balancing free speech rights against the need of the community to control and have safety for our people?
Yes, ma'am. It's a definite balancing act. I think that certainly free speech is one of the things that our country is founded on. But I would agree with Judge Kaysen. If that speech, where does the right to free speech end and the rights of another individual begin? If you are engaging in behavior that is meant to harm or terrorize or intimidate someone else because of their race or culture or background, then that's where I believe the law as it currently written draws the line. And so I think a judge that is confronted with those issues has to make sure that you're doing a delicate balancing test between free speech and hate crimes. I do believe that a case that satisfies the elements of a hate crime goes beyond the protection of free speech and should be prosecuted as Georgia law and the Georgia Constitution would allow. So I do think that that protecting the community is important. I do think that on these hate crimes, we have to make very clear what is acceptable, what is unacceptable, what is not acceptable behavior. And so when you are terrorizing, intimidating someone else, I think that's where we need to be looking at. I won't say curtailing free speech, but certainly looking at the rights of everyone, including the individuals that are being targeted by that hate crime or hate speech.
Okay, and possibly, and we may, give you both, another crack at that also. I think a lot of what's happening right now, we have individuals who are standing up, saying whatever they please. Now, they may not have been the one to take an initial action, but their words have incited others who did take those actions. So we're talking about the people who are saying they're shouting that there may be a fire, or they're lighting it. They're doing that gaslighting, but their actions are physically affecting people when they start inciting harm. So because we live in a time right now that we have not experienced. So this is groundbreaking. So and I guess it's talking about protecting our community. You as a judge, what measures would you take to protect the community? Myself, I have been threatened. I have been, you had many harsh words that have been said to me openly and publicly. And those in charge did not bring it to a halt, but people, attempted other things. So that's where this is coming from. Many of us are feeling so threatened right now in 2022. So if we could, we'll start again with you, Attorney Johnson.
Yes, ma'am. So I would say that certainly in terms of cases that would come before me or any other judge, you're utilizing the laws that are currently on the books. The case that is currently before the judge, certainly if we have a case that meets the elements of, say, terroristic threats charge, that is something that should be handled in court and handled appropriately in a way that the community is protected, the individuals are protected, and certainly in a way that doesn't curtail free speech. But again, if it's meeting tenets, the elements of terroristic threats, it should be prosecuted. I think there's prosecutorial discretion and judicial discretion, but I think that terroristic threats, when I was in the DA's office and even on the other side, had a number of terroristic threats cases, and I do agree that it's becoming a much bigger problem now. So I think we need to be robust when it comes to looking at these cases, as long as they meet the elements of the terroristic threats. I'm using that as an example, and I think a lot of them do. And I think the judges should look at those cases and rule accordingly. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And you hit it squarely on the head. Judge Kaysen, if you would answer that for us.
Absolutely. And again, I think Andre and I agree on a lot of things, and that's the thing, is there are different crimes that apply. Terroristic threats is certainly one of them, which is a crime of words, and there is a specific statute that applies to that. But another one that comes to mind as you were giving that prelude to the question is there's also an offense called inciting a riot, which again is a crime committed by words that leads to action and to violence. And these cases again are being made at the law enforcement level. Of course, the judges don't have any control over that. And then the prosecutor the prosecutor's office decides what cases to actually file in court. But I think what the judges need to realize, and I think it's something that really we were probably all taught when we were little by our moms and dads, is that, words hurt. Words can have impact and meaning. And that's why we have those laws on the books. And we need to understand as a judge that the impact that those offenses have on the victims, and we need to take that into account. We also still have to look at the overall circumstances of that defendant and take that into account, look at that case as a whole, and make an appropriate sentence, whether it's a plea or a trial. We have to apply the law and look at the circumstances. We can't say what we would do on a specific case. We're not allowed to do that. But we do have to recognize that, particularly just in the last few years with a lot of the racial and ethnic strife that we've had, that words matter. Good words matter. Bad words matter. We need to understand that words matter and apply the law appropriately to the cases that come in front of us.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Judge Casey. And I'll keep you on the screen to, ask the next question. Don't see any questions in the chat. To those of you who's watching on Facebook, we do apologize that for whatever reason we stopped streaming on Facebook. Right. But we have got with our communications team to let you all know we're still streaming live on YouTube. So thank you all that did switch over from Facebook to YouTube, and thank you all that's still watching on Twitter as well. Do you feel the war on drugs has been effective or ineffective? Why or why not? That's to both of you, but we'll start with you, Judge Casey.
I think it's very clear we still have a massive drug problem in this country. I don't know that the war on drugs has made it any better or worse. I think you have to look at the underlying root cause of why people turn to drugs, and that's a separate issue apart from any kind of law enforcement action. People turn to drugs for a variety of reasons, and it's that underlying root cause that we have to address. I do, however, think that some of the way law enforcement treats drug crimes and some of the overall policy around drug laws perhaps create more violence around that trade that affects people that aren't involved in the drug trade. But again, as judges, we are reactive. We have to look at what the legislature puts in place, apply the laws that they give us, and then act accordingly with that. But do I think that we need some different tools to address the underlying causes of the large amount of individuals we have that are using drugs? Absolutely. Because when people say that a drug crime is a victimless crime, they have not seen innocent people that have been shot because a drug deal going by, or they haven't seen individuals hurt because somebody was high on drugs and then took violent action against somebody. So we absolutely need to address that underlying cause of why people are doing drugs, and we need to figure out a way to somehow curb the violence surrounding drugs.
Thank you. And that same question, do you feel the war on drugs have been effective or ineffective? Why or why not?
I do not feel that it has been effective because, as Judge Casey referenced, we're not getting to the root problem with the war on drugs. I mean, it can't just be enforcement only without getting to the root. We've been doing this now for years and years and years, and the problem isn't getting any. I think the evidence is clear that the war on drugs hasn't been as effective as many of us would have liked. I was the drug court prosecutor when I was in the DA's office in DeKalb. That involved the DA's office, the public defender's office, therapists, psychologists, probation, all coming to the table collectively on these cases. And I think when we work those cases in that fashion, it was much more effective. We had one of the lowest recidivism rates of any drug court in the state because of that holistic approach. And so I think that's more effective than what we had traditionally been doing with the war on drugs.
Thank you for that. And,
I'm trying to stop Ms. Poole from President Poole from holding up that ticket. So I'm trying to keep it brief.
All right. So the next question is, and I'll keep you on the screen, Attorney Johnson. What do you believe are the causes of high rates of Black people being incarcerated? And might well say Black and brown because the rates are high with both groups. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think some of it is over policing in the Black community, in the brown communities. I think disproportionate minority confinement is real. I mean, all you have to do is look at the statistics, and it's such a complex and multi-layered problem. But I think that starting at the community level is how you begin to stop that. And it's sometimes creative ways of policing, ways of engaging the community. Because whenever you see a police officer, your heart rate raises, even if you haven't done anything wrong, because you're thinking of the officer as somebody that's going to, do something to you in some way and not there to protect you. That's a problem. And so I think it's a real issue in the Black and brown community. And I think that we have to be creative in engaging the community early to address that. I think that's the way that you improve it, because I think to the extent that you can improve those relations between law enforcement and these Black and brown communities, I think that has the effect of reducing the over policing that we're seeing or have been seeing traditionally.
Thank you. And same question to you, Judge Cation. What do you believe are the causes of high rates of Black people being incarcerated, Black and brown people being incarcerated?
Well, I feel like Andre might be in my head a little bit, because I was going to say a lot of the same things. Is that certainly I think it starts with typically we've seen some over policing in minority communities, and beyond that, and it's a little bit to what Andre was talking about with the community policing. I think we've gotten away from discretion for law enforcement officers. I think there's been a reason why we need to get away from that, because sometimes a lot of times law enforcement officers have used poor discretion. But, years ago, officers would encounter someone, and if it was a minor offense, they would just talk to them. They would call their parents. They would send them home. And it wasn't always that the default was to arrest someone. And I think law enforcement perhaps has gotten away from that a little bit. And that goes to that community policing that Andre was talking about, that if law enforcement officers know their community, then they can do more to impact that community and perhaps talk to individuals in that community and not just automatically arrest them for something that can be dealt with a warning or just even with, hey, you know what, you just need to go home. You may not be able to drive, but you're 2 driveways down from your house, so you just need to walk home. You come back, get your car tomorrow, and not go through the process. Now, we still have to, weigh that against protecting the community. But I think it starts, obviously, it starts with law enforcement because they're the first ones on the line. And then it goes through with prosecutors' offices looking at those cases and then sending those cases through. And then, of course, they come to the court. And I think we are moving in the right direction. I can certainly assure you that the folks that come in front of me, I'm not looking at their color and sentencing based on their color. I'm looking at their situation and sentencing based on their situation. And I try to take into account everything that's unique to that individual, as well as is unique to that case and balance that and make an appropriate decision. And that has nothing to do with the color of anyone's skin that comes in front of me, or anyone's religion, or anyone's ethnicity, or anyone's sexual orientation that comes in front of me. Oh no, I got the little orange thing, so I'm going to stop.
Okay, we're going to try to wind this down now. We had two sets of judicial candidates tonight. With the other set, a lot of what I heard were words like justice, compassion, reform. I didn't hear that a lot on this side. So I'm going to set you guys up, about what are the three most important issues facing Gwinnett County's Superior Court judge. Well, excuse me, I'm not reading. I'm trying to read while I'm talking. So I'm going to put it in front of me to make sure I get this correct. Okay, so again, we want to make sure, because we know that you are all human, but we know we are all built with implicit bias, and that we things are based upon our culture and our history and experiences. That's a fact. So, but I want you to, let's sum this up when we're talking about what are the three most important issues facing Gwinnett's Superior Court, and what measure would you enact as a member of the Judiciary to address them? So let's hear from you, Judge Kaysen.
Well, obviously, I think one of the biggest issues right now, and it's related to the pandemic. Obviously, we're coming out of this. We weren't able to have jury trials for approximately 15 months. We were curtailed in some of the hearings that we could have. And so we are backed up. There's just no doubt about it. We've got to address that backlog, because even before the pandemic, as you can well imagine, sometimes justice does not move as swiftly as it ought to. And the pandemic has only exacerbated that. So that's, I think, our biggest issue, because justice delayed, whether it's criminal or civil justice, is justice denied. We've got divorce cases, custody cases that are sitting there waiting to be resolved. We've got to deal with that. I think the other biggest, one of the biggest issues, and Andre actually touched on it at the beginning, is making sure that our community trusts the courts. Even when I was with the DA's office, and then when I took the bench, I have consistently gone out to our different communities to explain the court system. I've gone to the Asian communities, the Indian communities, the Hispanic communities. We've done public service announcements about how the courts are there for the community, and to make sure we demystify the courts, because what, again, we don't understand, we're scared of. And we've got to make sure that individuals know that we are community servants, that we are part of their community, and that we believe in them in this community. And I have already started doing that. I've always done that as a public servant, whether it was with the DA's office or on the bench. And then we've got to make sure people understand that system, and that they understand why we're making the decisions that we are. If we just make a decision and don't explain it, then how can we expect them to respect that? They may not agree with it, but if we can explain it, if we can show that compassion, if we can show them that we've been heard and explain why we're ruling a certain way, then they will respect the courts. They will understand the decision. And then we'll have justice in this community. And we've got to make sure that we continue to do that. And then we do need to make sure that we have individuals that are able to be there to represent these folks that can't afford that. And we do have a situation where we've got to get more attorneys on our indigent defense list. We've honestly got to get more folks in our district attorney's office. They're short staffed too. We've got to make sure that we can be fully staffed. And then that goes back to addressing that backlog and making sure that we can get justice to the members of our community.
Okay, thank you. And Attorney Johnson, and again, we want to hear about that justice compassion. And we know everyone has implicit bias, but the three important things and how you would handle them here in Gwinnett, if you would answer that for us, please.
Well, I will say that efficiency slash flexibility is a huge thing because the pandemic has created a backlog. There's been some talk that maybe the numbers are going to be going back up, so we don't know yet whether or not that's going to impact the courts. And so I think it's important that the courts are efficient by utilizing technology and whatever else is at the disposal to make sure that the cases are handled despite some of these setbacks with respect to the pandemic and other issues. And flexibility, being able to respond on a dime based on the needs of the community is something that the Superior Court should be doing. The next thing is cultural competency. We are in the most diverse county in the state. And I think that the Gwinnett County Superior Court should be embracing cultural competency in a much bigger, much major way. As a matter of fact, because I think Gwinnett County is the best county in the state, Gwinnett County should be leading the state on this issue. They should be the model that all the other counties come to see how we handle and how serious we are about cultural competency. And then utilizing judicial discretion with compassion. And that means compassion for the victims as well as the defendants. Judicial discretion is a huge thing. And yes, we do come with our own biases and baggage. And so that's why it's very important that we're listening to everyone, that we're considering the evidence, that decisions aren't being made, quickly or and I don't think any of the judges are doing that, but making sure that we are really looking at these cases in a holistic way and not in a narrow lens. Because I think when you get that narrow lens, that's when people start to question whether or not the judicial system is working for them. And so those are areas that I think are important. I do think, President Poole, that compassion is a big part of it. And I think where you get to utilize that is within your judicial discretion for all of the parties.
Thank you for that. Edward, do we have any last questions? Oh, we don't have Facebook, so
Yeah. Look, they ain't asking. They like they scared to ask questions on YouTube. But no questions from anybody that's watching on YouTube. We'll do one last question and then we'll let y'all do your elevator speeches and we'll close out our program. Last question is, what do you think of the growing prison population? What response should society have to prison overcrowding? And we'll start with Attorney Johnson.
I think that prison overcrowding is a serious issue. I think that we talked earlier about the school to prison pipeline. I mean, there's so many systematic reasons why we end up with prison overcrowding, and so we really got to go all the way back to elementary school, middle school, and intervene there so that we can start to effectively address these issues long term. I think that it's difficult because society, if you do something really wrong or heinous and you commit a crime, you're convicted, people think you should be locked up, and we are overdoing it in terms of by our population. It's overflowing. I mean, most of the jails that I've dealt with as a criminal defense attorney have some level of overcrowding at some point, and it's a problem. So we need to get creative in making sure that people who need to be in jail are in jail, but people that can be in other types of programs need to be there, and that comes from being flexible and being responsive to the community about the needs of the community. So I think we can, if we do those things, we collectively reduce that prison problem that I definitely believe exists.
All right, thank you. And Judge Kaysen, I reread the question. What do you think about the growing prison population, what response should society have to prison overcrowding?
Well, certainly, I think there's no question that Georgia has one of the highest prison populations in the country, which is why, years ago, the governor started with criminal justice reform and started making and taking some measures to start to diminish that prison population. We've got to figure out how to get that under control. We've got to change society's views about who needs to be in prison and then who perhaps needs to be in a program. Certainly, there are individuals that, due to the offense that they've committed, certain heinous offenses, that need to be restrained from society, and society needs to be protected from them. And that's why prisons are there. But, we have one of the best day reporting centers here in Gwinnett County through the Department of Community Service that allows people to not go to prison, to go to these day reporting centers, to get educated, to get skills, to get mental health treatment, to get drug treatment, to make better decisions and not continue that vicious cycle. Additionally, you've got to do those pretrial diversion programs where we're making sure we divert them away from the system. The problem is when someone gets so many offenses, the natural inclination is they haven't learned their lesson. And we as society kind of have to rethink that and look at, well, what is the root cause of why they keep getting involved in the criminal justice system? And if we can address that root cause, whether it's through accountability courts, through pretrial diversion, through day reporting center, to not have them in prison, then we make our society a better place. We can't just keep locking people up. It's just not tenable. And we've got to reassess as a society what kind of individuals we think need to be locked up and why.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'll let you all let you take a breath, get your thoughts together to give your 2-minute 2-minute elevator speech to close out our program. Just want to remind everyone again, judicial elections are only on the ballot this May, and in Gwinnett County, school board elections are only on the ballot in May. So just please make sure that you fill out the entire ballot, go all the way down to the bottom where the judicial and school board elections will be, and make sure you elect who you want to represent you on Superior Court. I think we got some state judge races. We have some state, I think there's a state Supreme Court races, a matter of fact. So again, please fill out the entire ballot. So I'll start with you. Let me see. Judge Casey, give us your 2 to 3 minute elevator speech to close us.
Let's keep it at 2 minutes because we gave them only 1 minute. So
I'm just giving them a little extra 60 seconds if they had to wait.
We want to try to be fair. We don't want to give them too much.
Right. All right. Well, certainly I have made it my career and my passion to protect this community and to protect everyone in this community. And I will say, I think you could talk to anyone in the legal community and they would tell you that I am passionate about that and I am fair and how I treat people in my courtroom. I think you can talk to defense attorneys and prosecutors, as well as civil litigants, and they'll tell you that I'm one of the hardest working judges up there and that I am committed to protecting this community. I've done that for the last 21 years. I have the experience to continue to do that. I have the dedication to do that. And I've shown that I can do what needs to be done to get through a backlog to make sure that we do not have justice delayed. I have appreciated this community's support and overwhelming support in my first election and trusting me with this task of protecting you. And I just ask for your continued support and for your vote. And as they've said, you got to go down to the bottom of whatever ballot it is you pull to make sure you get to those judicial races. They impact people's everyday lives. And I have been so honored and privileged to have been a part of that on the bench for the last 3 years. And I appreciate your continued support. And I hope that I will have your vote on May 24th. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Judge Casey. And Attorney Johnson, you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I am going to end as I began. I've been an attorney for 24 years, will be 25 years in October. And in those 25 years, whether it be representing children in the juvenile system, whether it be representing criminal defendants in superior court and state court and other levels of court, whether it be representing the state of Georgia on cases where children are abused or neglected, the child support cases, all of these cases, I've dealt with families in trauma, families in crisis, people in crisis. And I think that experience coupled with my legal experience makes me qualified to be your next Gwinnett County Superior Court judge. I have been fortunate to have a wide variety of experience, both on the criminal defense side and on the prosecution side. You've heard all of the others experiences that I've been fortunate enough to have. And I love living here in Gwinnett. I've loved raising my kids here in Gwinnett and having a family here. It's the best place in Georgia to raise a family. And I want to serve the citizens of Gwinnett County as your next Gwinnett Superior Court judge. And I humbly ask for your vote. Early voting is May 2nd. May 24th is the vote. Vice President Paul already let everybody know that. My website, andreforgwinnett.com. Please go to that if you have any questions or want any additional information. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been an interesting night when we're talking about judges. As an African American female, mother of 2 sons, having numerous brothers, my husband being a son with many brothers, the community, those who sit on the courts affect us so closely. And right now, during this horrific times that we are living in, the African American community is feeling assaulted. We're feeling assaulted, and we're feeling like no one is listening. So, what we want to say to everyone out here tonight, we will be looking at those who we are electing. We have many people who have been elected, but we need accountability and transparency. So I am speaking from the depth of my heart right now. I appreciate your answers. I appreciate you spending time. I appreciate this forum and platform. So we thank you. We will be listening. We will be looking, and we will be reporting back to the community. It's about your platform, not what you look like, but your platform. And if you're going to be honest and open to what our community needs, because right now we do not have that on the judicial level in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Before I go too far and out of my bounds, because we do not want to do that, I do have an announcement from the Cobb County NAACP, and on tomorrow they will be.
Well, before you read the announcement, Penny, let me dismiss our guests again.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge Kaysen and Attorney Johnson, for coming on. We appreciate y'all waiting around for the second hour for you all to get y'all turn to speak. Again, good luck in your respective races. Y'all have a good rest of your night. I'm gonna let you all go, and then we're gonna make some.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay.
Okay, and let me make this quick announcement. President Grimes from Cobb County noted that on tomorrow they will be having a meeting from at 6 p.m. in their county council area. That's President Greene Bonner Grimes, and they're asking us to congregate in the Marietta City Hall at 5:30. Come They are highly disturbed about the situation that the city of Marietta is not acknowledging Juneteenth as a holiday. Again, the city of Marietta is not acknowledging Juneteenth as a holiday. So they're asking all of you if you are able to meet at Marietta City Hall, 5:30 p.m., and to support them on making sure that Cobb County is recognizing all its cultures and its history and making sure that the people will be able to have this as a holiday as the rest of the state in Georgia. Edward, do you have any other announcements?
Only other announcement we got. Look, we know Resurrection Weekend is this weekend, so we ask everybody to be safe for those who may be traveling. And we won't have any programs this weekend. We'll be back April the 23rd for our civic education training. This time it will be on how SB 202 has changed the effects of voting. So we will give you some skills that you'll need before you get out here and start voting on early in-person voting on May 2nd. And we'll also go over absentee ballot, what changes, because it's totally different from how it was in 2020. So we want to educate you on how those changes with the absentee ballot has affected, because we want your votes to count. We do want you to count your votes to count. And make sure you please choose a partisan ballot, whether it's Republican or Democrat. The only way you can vote in those Democratic or Republican elections is you have to choose a partisan ballot. If you choose a nonpartisan ballot, you're only going to be able to vote in the judicial elections. And if you're in a district where there's a school board election, the school board elections. And then on April the 24th, which is that following day, Sunday, and let me back up. Civic education training will be 10 o'clock a.m. Saturday. So while you're up cooking breakfast, stream us from your YouTube to your TV, to your smart TV, or to your Fire Stick, or from Facebook to your Fire Stick, and listen to that civic education training on how SB 202 has changed voting in Georgia, so you can understand, what you need to know to vote. And then on April 24th, we will have a Meet the Candidate forum at 5 p.m., which is this Sunday. That will be on the general solicitor. We will have the current incumbent, Brian Whiteside, on, and the person he's running against, or that's running against him, shall I say, she will also be on. Excuse me, I apologize, I don't know her name. All the candidates are running through my head right now. So, but we will get that out. And but she has been invited onto the program to state why she would make a better general solicitor. So just be looking for that program at 5 o'clock on Sunday, April 24th. And that's it for right now in terms of our programs and updates. Again, we thank you all. It's been a long night. Thank you all for hanging in there with us through the issues with Facebook and switching over to YouTube. And that's all I have, President Poole. You can close us out with a prayer.
Okay, and it's Lisa Marie Bristol. We want to make sure that
thank you.
We give due time. Lisa Marie.
Thank you for the assist.
And during that primary election, the winner will be the declared winner of that office, because there is not a Republican running in that race for Solicitor General. That's why we have them on. There is no Republican challenge. So whoever wins that Democratic race will be the new Solicitor General for Gwinnett County. And again, her name is Lisa Marie Bristol. Okay. Thank you, beloved community. Again, we thank you for spending this time with us. We thank you. Please contact us. Let us know what we can do better. Let us know if you want to send some questions in ahead of time so that we can review them. All of our questions are unsolicited, and are meaning that our candidates do not get to see them before they come. So we want them to be open, honest, and it's questions. We greatly appreciate any questions or suggestions you may have. Again, we at the Gwinnett NAACP, we thank you. And we will be closing this night out in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Lord God, we thank you for our beloved community. Order our steps. Holy Spirit, speak for us, Holy Spirit. Guide us. Let this be a place where we are doing your will and the work for the community of the people. We ask for blessings when we speak. We ask for blessings each way and path we walk. We ask for your blessings to lead, guide us, and direct us for the betterment of our beloved community. We thank you. Please, God, protect us, keep us from hurt, harm, and danger. Lord, the virus is still with us, it has not left. Help us to use wisdom as each household makes these decisions for themselves. Again, we just thank you. We bless you for everything that you have done. It is in the priceless and matchless name of my God, Jesus. Please pray to your God. Amen, amen, and amen.
Amen.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, you all, and we'll see y'all again. Like I said, it's, April 23rd, 10 a.m. We'll be back for a civic education forum or civic education training on the changes SB 202 is going to have on voting in 2022. So y'all have a great night. Again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for staying with us through the changes. And good night, you all.